this case, the prosecution wants to argue it's a very simple case. Donald Trump was trying to cause Michael Cohen to hide a payment to an adult film star to affect the election, to interfere with the election, and do so corruptly, to hide things from the voters. At the same time, their summation, and I saw the beginning and the end of it, was 5 hours long. It was very complicated and it was mostly easy to follow, but there were times when it got kind of weedy. How difficult is a case like this for a jury? And is it made easier or harder having two lawyers on the jury?
Well, it's interesting. We've talked about this. Lawyers on the jury does change the tenor because it's human nature for people to kind of go, well, what do you guys think? But if they're responsible and follow the rules, they're supposed to, of course, only find facts and deal with the evidence, not give some sort of like random legal advice to the jury. You know what I mean?
But does the jury look to them and say, you understand how to read the law, you're more schooled in this than I am, can you take a leadership role here to try to help us understand what's going on?
Yeah, I think that could happen. I mean, what's so fascinating now, 3.5 hours into the deliberations, that we get this note is we find out something. We don't know what we're about to find out.
We don't know if it's a note. We know it's a ringing of the bell.
A ringing of the bell,
so
right.
It could be a note, it could be a question, it could be
a note, a question,
verdict.
or more. We're waiting on that. But here we are 3.5 hours in. They've had time to both digest what you just described, Katie, those lengthy arguments yesterday, as well as the jury instructions this morning. And so we were all following and reading those instructions and trying to figure out, okay, where did it all land? They looked fairly straightforward to me. And the instructions are, of course, designed to give everyone guidance on how to have these conversations that they've now been having for about 3.5 hours.
So Mershon has taken the bench. We have a little bit of color on what the ring sounds like, a very old-fashioned telephone. Donald Trump is standing there. He's holding papers. We're going to find out more in just a moment. It is a note from the jury, according to Judge Mershon. So, okay, they have a note from the jury, and they are going to potentially, if it's a question, have Judge Mershon reread back the jury instructions.
Just to be clear, that if it's a note for amplification on the law or a note for witness testimony, either way, it's going to take some time. Because if it is a question of law, he does need to hear from the parties about what they think should be said. And if it's the thing that takes even more time is if it's a read back, figuring out exactly what needs to be read back is something where the parties need to figure out exactly what that is. So that usually takes time to answer that question.
So the note was sent at 2:56 p.m. just before we came on the air and wondered what the jury must be thinking. There are 4 requests from the jury. Catherine. 4 requests. What does that lead you to believe?
It could be a request for readback, request to, tell us again what you meant by intentionally. It could be an assortment of things. 4 requests, that's separate.
Okay, hold on. Before you have to guess, I can fill us in. It reads, we, the jury, request David Pecker's testimony regarding the phone conversation with Donald Trump while Pecker was in the investor meeting. They also want Pecker and Cohen's testimony about the Trump Tower meeting and Pecker's testimony about his not finalizing the transfer of McDougal's life rights to Donald Trump.
Yeah, this is interesting, and let's get into it. We now have the first clues about what they're discussing, and we want to be as careful as possible. The fact that they're asking about something may or may not be what it looks like at first impression. For example, Katie, a meeting that the prosecution brought up because they say it's bad for Trump. The fact that the jury's discussing it doesn't mean they agree with the prosecution that it's bad for Trump. But these are definitely key questions about reviewing evidence, testimonial or otherwise, regarding the tabloid plot. So we have Mr. Pecker, who, of course, was the first star witness. He, of course, ran the Inquirer. I think people remember. He was the AMI chief. The Trump Tower meeting is important to the prosecution's case, and our prosecutors can speak to this as well, because that's where they argue the catch and kill plot was developed. So the DA's team has argued that Trump Tower meeting was key. And then Michael Cohen's testimony about that meeting is, again, 2 different ways to look at what was alleged to be the beginning of that plot.
So one thing I just wanted to say, I mean, I totally agree with what Ari's saying, which is that I caution people to not tea leaf read too much. I have seen notes which you think are really good for one side or the other, and it's the opposite. But the one thing I do think is good for potentially for the state here is asking to have Michael Cohen's testimony read back. David Pecker is not surprising because there was not a lot of attack by the defense on David Pecker. So you can understand why that, as the first witness, is something they need to have their memories refreshed about exactly what he said. But the fact that they are asking for Michael Cohen after the onslaught he took is interesting, because that means that there isn't sort of unanimity on, like, we are not going to focus on what he said. We do not believe him. It is not useful. It is, to me, that has to be viewed as at least a potentially good sign that they are like, yes, he may need corroboration, but we want to hear what he has to say.
Well, they're also asking for Pecker, so doesn't that indicate that they want to see how those two stories align?
Oh,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really makes sense. I mean, nobody is thinking, there's no way that a jury is going to say, oh, just because Michael Cohen said it, we're going to take it to the bank, and without any corroboration. So this makes total sense. And David Pecker, I really do think, because he was not really attacked by the defense, it makes sense that they'd be, you know what, that's the first witness. Let's hear what he had to say again.
So they have the laptop, they have all the evidence, but they don't have testimony.
They don't.
Why don't they have testimony?
That has to be read back. So that's the court reporter coming into the courtroom and literally reading it back. And as Ari said, it's important that for the prosecution, they're going back to that Trump Tower meeting where the conspiracy, the alleged conspiracy, was hatched, where the catch and kill was hatched. That means they're focusing, they've just started right out. We're going to focus on that. And also, what did Michael Cohen say about that meeting? Because they've asked for his testimony.
It's interesting they're starting at the beginning as well. They're not going to the end of it. They're saying, when was this initial meeting had? What was said at this initial meeting?
Yeah, and I would put it like this, and again, this is what's interesting, we're all processing it live. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say this is great for the prosecution yet, but I will definitely say it's not bad.
Yes.
By which I mean they're looking at the theory of the case. You know what would be bad? If they were asking about comparing Michael Cohen's description of this now much discussed call to the bodyguard to something else. If they were asking about places where the Trump folks attacked. These are questions that at least show the jury has begun, and this has come out of their first 3.5 hours of discussion and deliberation, they have begun by saying, what happened at Trump Tower? What was the tabloid plot? And was it part of an election crime, potentially?
Can I just tell the viewers sort of what's going to happen now, because there will be delay. And what happens is the prosecution and the defense now are taking this note and figuring out, respectively, what pages and by page and line responds to this. So they're going through everything David Pecker said to figure out what it is. Then they confer with each other. There will always be a disagreement about exactly what it is. And then those disagreements are brought up to the judge, who decides what exactly is responsive, and then there is the readback. So there'll be some time delay now.
And can I ask a question before?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm in and out of here with you, and we're going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah.
But a question for Catherine is, specifically in these kind of courtrooms that you've been in here in New York Court, how long would you expect this readback to be, based on what Andrew
And I was just going to say, the judge said we're going to end today at 4:30. I'm wondering if he'll tell the jury, you know what, if we do this today, it might take us past 4:30, so therefore we'll do it tomorrow. But that's, because he's promised them 4:30, they may have plans, but if he lets them know...
He said 4:30, we can reassess and see where you are.
Exactly. So they have to, as Andrew said, there's usually not an agreement between both sides. No, they don't want that part of the testimony. They want this.
I think it's interesting that, when we're talking about the Trump Tower meeting and the deal with David Pecker and Michael Cohen and Donald Trump, the defense team tried to paint this as standard operating procedure for any candidate or campaign in dealing with a journalist, and saying that what AMI was doing, catching and killing stories, was what all of us as journalists do when we are dealing with a campaign. It's normal for a candidate to spin. A campaign is a conspiracy between a candidate and another person to get them elected. They tried to trot out Rahm Emanuel and others to say that this was absolutely fine. Do you think that that question is potentially going to come up with these jurors? I mean, we know that is not standard operating procedure. We know that is way beyond the bounds of journalism. It's not what a traditional or a news outlet or journalist does. But the jurors might not know that.
So the defense is going to very much look at the precise wording of the note, and they will be arguing for as much of the defense case coming in as responsive, and the judge has to make that decision. In this case, you can imagine the state will say, no, that is not about what happened at the meeting. That is about how they should be thinking about the meeting. And so there will be that. That is exactly why there will be some delay here. One thing that, to Catherine's point about sort of how the judge could proceed, is because there are 4 sort of requests, the judge could say, if I want to get you out of here at a certain hour, we'll do it sort of seriatim. I'll take the first one and we'll get you a response to that. And so that it sort of doesn't all happen at once.
Yeah, I would add to that. You've got, as we were discussing and Katie pointed out, the comparison here. So the jury's interested in getting more information about this infamous Trump Tower meeting, and they're asking for David Pecker's description of it and Michael Cohen's. And one can reasonably infer they may then compare that. Their jury instructions actually urge them to do that, to look at testimony, not notes, to use their common sense and their recollection.